Okay, I'm starting the stream, switching back over. Okay, we are live. Hello and welcome to Fermenting Opinions. I'm your host, David Papiden.
I'm your co-host, James McVeigh.
And we are Fermenting Opinions, the podcast in search of a more palatable political ferment. Tonight is September 6th, 2018. This is Season 2, Episode 18. And I identified myself as the host, David Papiden. I forgot to include Status Cuck because I'm here with two libertarians. One, of course, is my co-host, so I feel like I need to do that. And just,
you should be familiar with me at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other libertarian joining us is Mr. Justin Cornett. And we've known each other a little while. This is our first time actually getting to interact. Unfortunately, his camera is not working, but we have him on audio. So when you listen to this on podcast, it'll be all fine and good. Anybody who's watching this on YouTube is going to be a little bit disappointed they don't get to see his beautiful face.
I have a face for radio anyway.
And that's I say that often myself. So.
Yeah, and you do, David. You do.
Thank you, James. Yes, the Status Cuck has a face for radio. Anyway, so we're here with Mr. Cornett, and again, we've known each other for a while. This is our first time talking. I'm really excited about it because this is a person who I agree on paper with about almost nothing. And I enjoy that. And I enjoy learning about the things you're doing and the things you're involved in. And so thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you. And I think it's important to keep the discourse civil for sure.
And we respect that. I mean, 100%. It's completely our mission. Hell, I think that's why we all became friends in the first place.
Right. I think so too.
This is how we can have disagreements that are civil and respectful without getting. Most of the time, you have a disagreement with somebody, especially on social media, especially on Facebook, it's going to turn invective. Someone's going to attack someone else's character or their intelligence or whatever. And I am so sick of that. And it seems like you are too, Justin. And I think that's one reason we're kind of kindred spirits in that sense.
You got two parties to blame for all that divide and conquer stuff we're talking about.
I can't disagree. So, Justin, you and I didn't know this until I guess basically after it was all over. But you were actually running for governor in the state of Tennessee. We were on, I guess, the website, and I still can't remember the name of the website, but it shows everyone who's running for everything in the state. We were looking at this around primary time. Yeah. I guess maybe about a month or so ago at this point.
Is that the Secretary of State's website?
I think that's what it is. Yeah. And it was scrolling down through governor and this and that, and lo and behold, we see your name. I'm like, Justin's running for governor? Really?
That's cool. As an aside, that's funny. The Status Cuck doesn't know where, in the state of Tennessee to track votes.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for the shade, James. We're just getting started. That's your opening salvo? Gosh. Okay. Anyway, so you were running for governor as an independent, despite the fact that you're a libertarian. And I know you're a big proponent for people who don't know you. You're a big proponent of libertarian ideas. You're big with the Libertarian Party in Tennessee, yet you're running as an independent. Why was that?
Because that's what the state of Tennessee requires, because your two-party system has gotten together to keep out competition. Tennessee has the 7th highest threshold for ballot access in the entire nation. It's one of 13 states that does not currently have a third party on the ballot anywhere in the state. It's a situation where if you're a Democrat or Republican or an independent, you can run with a D, an R, and I by your name for 25 signatures. But if you want to be any other voice attached to any other party, Libertarian, Green, Constitution, Socialist, who cares, it costs you 34,000 signatures instead of 25 like it does for everybody else. So as a bit of a protest measure, a group of us have gotten together to kind of flood your ballot with independent candidates to make the point that it's silly that they try to keep one libertarian off when 20 libertarians can run.
Did you say 34,000 signatures?
Yes, it's 34,000 signatures.
But if I want to be a Republican and run in a primary, I need 25?
Yeah, that's the rule.
Not 25,000, but 25.
Yeah, what's funny is the Tennessee state constitution calls for fair and equal ballot access. Like the Constitution states it plainly in the original Constitution. And here we are in a situation where it's 25 if you're on the good guys team or nobody's team, and 25 or 34,000 if it's anybody else's team. So it's a mess.
That seems almost motivated.
That seems like it's whoever wins the 64th district is about to get flooded with some email requests from me about something that should be rectified.
Absolutely.
What it seems like, if I may say so, is that the Republicans and Democrats are interested in controlling narratives and fear other voices coming into the fray. So they intentionally keep those out and divide you into those two groups, regardless of what your ideas might be. And then we get Republicans that are, big time progressive Democrat socialists that are tax and spend. And then we get blue dog Democrats that have voted Democrat since the 50s that are voting for socialists because that's what they have to offer on the Democrat ballot, straight socialists. So
there's a lot in there. I don't want to get lost in the weeds on it. I think the greater point there is basically how you, as the Libertarian Party, you guys are more or less being shut out.
I would argue a lot of people are being shut out. I mean, you
caught
the rules on the
But
you caught the rule shift on the Republican Party nominations this past year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they increased the number of primaries you needed to be voted in, and how much money you have to give to the party before you're okay to run as a Republican.
All right, that happened here. That happened here in
we did the same thing where we
almost caucus or whatever
for a while. We shut out just straight primary voting.
Yeah. If you weren't picked in the caucus, like you couldn't run as a Republican, you couldn't run at all, actually, according to the rules.
Yeah, well,
that's what the truth looks like. These are private institutions, Republicans and Democrats. Everybody wants to complain because the Democrats burned Bernie Sanders and let Hillary win, but the reality is they're an independent, not public group. They're a privately owned organization, and they can realistically do whatever the heck they want to.
Well,
they don't have to hold primary elections.
And they have a First Amendment right to do so. It's freedom of assembly.
That's exactly right. Sure. And the Republican Party does too. So to pretend that they don't control narratives is naive and continuing the problems that we already have with government. It's absurd to think that 340 million people can be broken into two groups effectively. That's a joke. But that's the world we live in.
Of course, and we all think it's one divide or the other. I mean, hell, you look at uprising and unrest over a Nike campaign ad. Well, and it's almost always divided down political lines. Every time some social issue pops up, doesn't matter what the social issue is, you're going to divide lines on it. Oh, some people wanted to protest something by blocking an interstate. What are they protesting? Police brutality. Well, now we're going to divide right down the line again. And it's always the same thing. I mean, there's no room for nuance. It's either you pick one side or you pick the other side, and you just browbeat them to death.
That's all that exists. Those are the options that are provided to us. The other option is to go out and unite as individuals, and the animosity between individuals at this point, it makes that tough.
Mr. Cornett, it sounds like you're endorsing unions. Just as a side note.
I'm a big fan of unions as long as they're not national unions and they're not public sector unions. Public sector has no business begging for extra tax dollars. Private unions shouldn't be able to dominate an entire industry, but a group of workers that work for one company should be able to come in and help
That's
make
an interesting bit of nuance.
I have
to do some ruminating on that.
Allow me to introduce you to a libertarian nuance. It's a very common one, actually.
Okay, I mean, it's a new one on me. I'm cool with that, though.
Most libertarians aren't cool with the AFL-CIO, but most libertarians are fine with a local grocery store having their own local union or something.
Exactly. I mean, everything gets bad when it gets big. Once it gets big, it has to start applying blanket solutions, and blanket solutions are where everybody gets lost.
See, this is where you guys sell me, because like before we came on, we were here just kind of rapping a little bit before we came on air. I was like, I think there's some deep down part of my lizard brain that wants to be a libertarian, But then I talk to libertarians, and I go, oh no, and I have to backpedal pretty hard on that. But like an idea like that, to me, that's not terrible at all. Like
no,
that
makes sense. Right?
Yeah, it makes decent sense to me because like. You don't want no unions because then you have basically no protection for workers.
Yeah,
but you don't want these overarching
controlling interests.
Like the
AFL-CIO that take money out of
and the good old boys club that it becomes. Like, also, I get all that. I don't love nothing about that.
As an aside, I have to mention that I'm speaking as a private individual.
Go ahead.
Not what I do for a living. However, I recuse myself on that one, but I understand the nuanced concept of. Multinational unions, somebody in an international field, they are controlling a lot more interest, and you have more of a problem, especially when they align themselves with a political party in the United States. Like the AFL-CIO almost always aligns themselves with the Democratic Party. It's an offshoot of the Democratic Party at that point, right? Exactly. You're not. When's the last time the AFL-CIO endorsed a federal level Republican candidate? Or conservative candidate at all, libertarian candidate, anybody else?
Somebody that was for school choice, just something that was outside of the box. I mean, libertarians get a bad rap for being crazy, but I feel like most of it is just because we're not living in that same box, and we're trying to solve problems outside of the norm, like healthcare, for example. It's one of my favorite things to talk about because the problem with healthcare is insurance. Insurance is a business model that insures risk. Healthcare is something that requires tons of maintenance. We're going about it with the wrong kind of business angle on it. If you look into these direct primary care options where you're paying $30 a month for all your primary care for your whole family, and then you add a catastrophic insurance plan on top of that, you're spending, I don't know, $400 less per family. And you're opening up a market on medicine that has the ability to innovate more rapidly than a hospital that has to conform to different insurance policies, for example. There's just more than one way to skin a cat, and to pretend that just because we've been doing it this way for 40 years, this is the right way to do it, it's typically not the case.
I would agree.
I don't necessarily have pushback on that.
No, of course not.
Well, no, of course not. We can get into some things, but right now,
that's a very reasonable way of looking at it. I mean, and that is the problem: is that we try to look at it as a piecemeal solution of healthcare should be free or heavily subsidized, versus employers should do that and let everyone else fend for themselves, whatever. There is a happy medium ground here where that you could have basic coverage at some rate that's extremely low versus, catastrophic coverage that costs more money.
Sure.
Well,
because
I'm all for taking care of the least among us. As somebody that is a self-proclaimed Bible thumper, I think that that's one of our obligations as humans, is to take care of the people that can't take care of themselves. However, we spend $1.2 trillion a year on Medicare, Medicaid, and that only applies to people over 65 and certain individuals below 18. We spend just barely more than half that on defense. Now think about that for a second. Everybody says we got a big problem with how much we spend on defense, but we're spending almost double that on just Medicare and Medicaid, which only applies to certain small groups of individuals.
If you'll allow me to interrupt for just a second, actually, what you're quoting isn't the defense budget. You're talking about
the discretionary budget,
specifically discretionary budget, but also.
I pulled it up earlier today to show it to somebody else. It's $620 billion year to date on defense, and it's
that's just pure. But excuse me, I'm sorry.
Including that's just life budgets, all that stuff.
That's not R&D. When you start talking about R&D and everything else,
let's not get too. I'm sorry. Let's not get too wonky here.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about the defense budget in general. The defense budget in general is bloated as hell, but that's because half of it goes to R&D and DARPA and things like that, where you're talking about giving them the better.
But part of the Medicare, that's non-discretionary.
Well,
that's versus discretionary. So when you compare them that way, you can make one.
But when you loot but you have to look at the overall budget. You know, I mean, if you really want to do this, let's start looking at a pie chart of the whole thing.
If you go to the usnationaldebtclock.org, it is government-sourced information on what the budgets are for everything. And if you go to that right now, you will see Medicare and Medicaid at $1.1 trillion, and the defense budget, stating that it includes black budgets and all that stuff, at $620 billion. It's just less, or just more than half of what we spend on Medicare and Medicaid.
And I won't disagree with you on the idea of, like, say, the Bernie Sanders plan for Medicare for all or whatever. It's going to be absolutely astronomically costly.
It's like the worst idea in the history of America.
You've said before yourself that you're not necessarily.
I'm not
opposed to like a single.
And why I say that is, show me the math, show me the budgeting. If you can find me a way to budget Medicare for all, I'm 100% on board. If you can pay for it, without raising my taxes and show me how you're going to do it, and show me I'm not losing money, that's a noble pursuit.
There's no way.
I know. And I'm saying,
is that your way of like agreeing to it without agreeing to it?
Well, it's my way of saying that. This is the same thing I tell liberals all the time, is a lot of what you espouse is great and should happen. You guys are the feel-good party.
You can't make it.
You're the feel-good party. You have great ideas. You just can't pay for it.
I mean, everybody needs healthcare. Everybody needs healthcare at some point.
Yeah, we all do, but who's paying for it? And
that's, you know what? That's the rub, right?
That is the rub.
As a human being, not as a employee of any particular organization, ironic thought. You know what happens if we took every single dime of our GDP and spent it on nothing but research and development, medicine, healthcare, all that stuff for every single person in the United States?
No, tell me.
Everybody still dies.
But there's a question there of quality of life, though.
Is not keep anybody alive.
Can you explain
how much is it worth?
How much? Well, I mean, everybody still dies. Yeah.
I guess I don't know.
The idea that humans are more.
And I don't want to go like hippie feel good on
or do we mean that in the sense that we don't
save anybody? No matter how much money we spend, we can't save anybody. We can't actually make anybody live forever. We're probably not going to make them live past 90, 95.
Well, yeah.
So we might extend their.
I mean, I got a 94-year-old grandfather who's still
Wait. My concern is with the 3-year-olds with leukemia, not the 94-year-old. The 94-year-old can kick the goddamn bucket as far as you know. Like I'm sorry about your grandfather. But I'm just saying, like, I'm not too worried about it. Imagine it's a life well lived. He's 94 years old.
No, I understand.
I'm worried about the 3-year-olds that have leukemia.
I get you there.
You know, that have no access to healthcare or something like that. You know.
Again,
that's what I'm concerned about.
There should be something there for the least among us. But the idea that we need health care paid for by the government for even capable individuals is absurd.
Oh, don't get me wrong.
Again,
I'm still falling. I don't want
to
I fall on the capitalist side of this. All I'm saying is that I think it's a noble pursuit to provide health care to everyone. That is a very noble pursuit.
I agree.
However, show me how you want to pay for it. That's all I ask. Show me the money. What do you want to do? Come up with something innovative. Find a way that doesn't involve taking 75% of my income, and show me how we all get along and we have all these great things.
The law of diminishing returns. At some point, you're throwing money at something and it's not getting you anything else. At what point is that the case? We already spend 1.2 trillion. China spends 2.2 trillion on their entire economy. Their entire economy.
Yeah, but that's China. They don't.
Well,
quality of life is not exact. I mean, rather the value of life is not. It's
like quoting Russian taxes and whatnot. Right, it's all going to Putin's pocket. Who gives a
But at the same time, that's defense. That's all your state spending. That's military. That's healthcare. That's everything for a country that's got 8 or 9 times as many people as we do.
Yeah.
Well, I guess let's move on from the healthcare. We could seriously argue this like for hours and hours. I'm going to leave one like sort of final thought. You said, as yourself, you identified as a Bible thumper. Canada has socialized medicine was brought about by evangelical Christians. That was
so was prohibition.
That's how it started.
So was prohibition.
Yes, ballpark it.
I'm just saying.
So is he.
Okay.
I'm right.
Nothing in my Bible calls for a theocracy.
Sorry, I don't know about your Bible, but I'm on that double play right there. I love that. That went right to home.
Oh God. I mean, anyway. Sorry, big guy, but anyway, let's move on from there. Because again, I think we've had so many like half sparring matches over so many issues, and I don't want to just sit and relitigate every conversation we've had on Facebook for 3 hours.
No,
we could, and we would enjoy it.
This is perfect. I mean, this is us. We got to throw some dukes out occasionally and whatnot. It'd be fun. But actually, let's talk about a little bit of a transition, if you don't mind. Sure. Justin, when you said you were running everything, we had actually an interview scheduled a little while ago. We had to change it. You started working as field director, I believe, for Americans for Prosperity in Tennessee.
That's correct.
Can we talk about that? Like, expound on it a little bit. What does that mean? I guess you haven't really been in the position long, so I mean, I know that because
every liberal listener just sucked air at that. They went when you said AFP. So let's explain that. Let's tease that out a little bit. Who are they?
Yeah, that sucking air is that sucking air is a direct result of the divide and the you're on the other team kind of thing, so I'm going to shut you down.
Yeah, that's kind of how I see the Republican reaction to hearing you work for the ACLU. It's kind of like, no, big guy, it's not that bad.
The Koch brothers have been making waves with their stance on tariffs within the Republican Party. Mr. Trump even sent out some tweets special for Mr. Koch about how he's a jerk for calling him out on tariffs, because tariffs are great when you're orange-haired.
I mean, that's true.
Human-faced, but yeah.
Well, I mean, different tones of orange.
Sure. Yeah, no, I can definitely... I mean, obviously, I can definitely sympathize with that because, I'm no fan of Trump. Yeah. But and I'm also no fan of tariffs because that doesn't seem to be helping anybody.
No, it's a really...
But I can tell no one's being helped by that.
Don't get me wrong. Well, you know what it is. It's a bargaining chip. Sure. It's just a threat. All he's doing is rearing back with a baseball bat and saying, "Don't make me hit you." If it works, he's brilliant. If it doesn't work, then everybody else is right, and
and we just we bankrupt a few,
and then they'll be distracted by the next controversy that comes out next week, right? Everyone's mad at their shoes this week, and then next week there'll be some other
bankrupt a few dozen corporations that employ a few million people, and who gives a shit, right?
Yeah,
right.
So much for jobs and taking care of people.
But yeah, I mean, Trump operates a lot on threats and promises, right? He's renegotiating NAFTA. There's a promise. Renegotiated like the Kim Jong-un denuclearization. Those are promises. Just like the tariffs,
Donald Trump
as a threat. Yeah?
Donald Trump's never had a job in his life, so it doesn't really matter. But
yeah,
fair. Okay, but anyway, continue.
I mean, my story's pretty simple. I'm a regular guy. I've worked many dead-end jobs throughout my life, and I'm just interested in trying to make the world a better place. So I jumped into the Libertarian Party, and I've been doing that for like 2 years. And all I do is go out and try to make friends and convince them that freedom is good, which is harder than you might think in America. But it's true. It actually is good. And then this opportunity came along with Americans for Prosperity, and they're all about pretty much the same stuff. Freedom is good, and I get a paycheck to push that now. So it's kind of like a dream job for me. The idea that I can spend all of my time instead of just making a hobby out of trying to make the world a better place, in my own humble opinion, is a gift.
Can I ask you, I guess as field director, kind of what do you do on the daily? What what is a job description? You know, like I assume it involves a lot of coordination and door knocking and things of that nature. But
yeah, I mean, there is quite a bit of that. Don't get me wrong, but that is actually something that we're trying to move away from to some extent. These guys operate off of a really interesting concept that they've coined and trademarked called market-based management, which is basically applying free market principles and the idea of free market principles to managing a business, which means that everybody in it gets treated as an equal partner, and everybody in it is also required to uphold that certain level of personal responsibility that's necessary to be successful in the organization. So realistically, my job in the Tri-Cities is whatever I want to make it out to be. But essentially, it's make friends and have them help advocate for things that would provide them with more freedom. The big push, the next cycle, is going to be on criminal justice reform.
Oh, tell me everything.
See, this is why I'm like, okay. We did all this. We argued about healthcare and
butter, my friend.
Personally, let's talk about criminal justice reform. Let's hear about this one.
I wish I could give you specifics on it, but they haven't been mapped out yet because it's a matter of what we might actually be able to get through in the legislature.
Can you give me a general idea of what we're talking about? Because I want to get on board if it is actual criminal justice reform.
It is actual criminal justice reform. We're talking sentencing. We're talking decriminalization of minor offenses. We're talking all those things that are essentially based on freedom. We're not looking at trying to find ways to lock other people up. We're trying to break cycles of recidivism and have communities that can kind of manage themselves as opposed to having the government handle every single aspect. You got to remember, one of the Koch brothers.
Wait. I mean, that sounds like some kind of Scandinavian country.
Hang on. I want to ask the question. Are you talking about more localized, community-based probation businesses?
You might see, you would be likely to see things that don't throw people in jail for minor offenses and find other ways to use the community to help them.
Sure. And here's my main concern that I want to push back on really hard. Right now, Tennessee has this system where in general sessions courts, especially, we let counties decide, or even broken down counties into parts. Like Murray County has 2 parts. We have General Sessions Part 1, General Sessions Part 2, and both of them have their own choice in what we're going to do with probation services. And they're private corporations that have control over people's lives and freedom. And it's pretty wide open. It's a big thing where they're collecting fees and doing these things where we're basically imprisoning debtors. I'd like to see it go the other way, and I don't know what you're describing.
Well, no. We're talking about a community-based supervisory alternative type stuff. So instead of checking in with a parole officer necessarily, maybe there's a program that a church is running that is trying to get people on their feet and off of drugs or something. That could be something that could be explored as an alternative to locking someone up, giving them a criminal record, and helping them become a better criminal while they sit in jail.
Hang on a second. I'm all focused on, I'm right there with you.
You heard the
focus on, I did. On, rehabilitation rather than punishment, about finding alternatives, like we've talked about, like
trying to get someone's criminal record clean so they get jobs.
So it doesn't affect they're employed. I am a big church-state separationalist. However, as president of the national chapter of Americans United for Separation Church and State, I have to throw that out there. So it is a concern to me to do what.
Hugo Black was a terrible justice.
I think he did good work.
Okay.
We're not. I don't want to deflect here.
But neutral arbiter.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, so I heard the same words you did, and my concern is also the same as David's on separation of church and state. You cannot hand this kind of thing over to church organizations and give them state money to handle probationers and your version
if it
of
affects their mission, which as a church, everything affects their mission.
Okay, there's gray lines there. What I'm really concerned about is the probationers. Me as a probationer, let's say that I'm some low-level drug addict or whatever. I have some crack possession charge that's not a felony, or well, actually, okay. Anyway, let's make it a marijuana possession charge. We can make sure that's a misdemeanor. Whatever. I want to keep that off my record, and now a church is involved in keeping that off my record. Are they receiving state funds? A, that's my first question. And B, is my participation in their Christian or religious message part of my probation?
Yes. Okay. So let me clarify a couple things. I've been with the group for about 30 days. I don't know what the specific plan is. The stuff that I'm giving you is stuff that I have taken out of my research when I was writing my platform for my defunct governor campaign.
Okay.
But essentially the concept is they would have a choice. It wouldn't be a mandatory kind of thing where you got to go to church now because you were bad. I don't think anybody's saying that. I don't think any state has passed a law similar to that. But the idea of contracting it out to institutions that would be willing to help, that have programs in place that can already help, that some people may be interested in because of whatever. We're in the Bible Belt. It's not like it's
I get all of what you're saying, but you're dancing a line that I find very dangerous. If it's one of soup kitchens or something, totally fine. The question becomes, do I have a choice of liberty, meaning that I'm not going to jail, or to conform to some kind of Christian message? Because I'm going to choose the Christian message, even if I'm an atheist, because I don't want to fuck my life up.
He'll do that. I'll go to jail. Because we were talking about this before.
I'm just saying that
I
will sacrifice, but doing so is a chilling effect on freedom of speech and freedom of religion.
That I agree with.
And that is really bad. Really bad. Like my libertarian heckles are up now, and I'm pissed off even hearing that. But
I'm a Bible thumper, and the reality is we do live in the Bible Belt, and another reality is that churches have been a consistent and good source of charity type projects.
Yes,
the entirety of the time this country has existed,
and entirely agree with that. What is very, very important, and I will caution you moving forward, if this is something you want to champion, or if this is something AFP is talking about, if you have the opportunity to give some pushback, it should be non-religious. It should be charity-based. Even if the money or the aim is coming from a church, that's great. Advertise the church and everything else going on with it, but do not make it religious-based in the slightest bit, meaning participation should not involve anything to do with religious ideals. It's much more about, I will help feed the homeless. I will do community service in some way.
But in practice, though, when you see these programs and initiatives, you see what they have on paper. They're saying, oh, no, we're not going to step into that. We're not going to advocate our religion. We're not going to push it on our people.
Some do, some don't.
9 times out of 10, things that I hear from people who end up involved in situations like this, they're having religion pushed on them anyway.
And that's an issue. And
they do it,
under duress. You're doing it under duress. It's not free will. There is no free will involved. The idea is, do you fuck your life up and take your criminal conviction or whatever into the probation system, or do you get kind of a free pass to push this church's message? And that's the scary part. You want to avoid that. Right. You want to stay on the charity end of things, because just because it's a Christian-sponsored charity doesn't mean that it has to push religion on the probationer. The issue is,
as a libertarian, I look for all the possibilities that we can find to fund things that need to be funded that are not without funding them through government.
Sure.
Okay. So as such, a church is one of the first things that comes to mind.
Of course.
Now, again, there are many states that have passed criminal justice reform, and the federal government has passed some criminal justice reform.
Yes.
So none of those have any requirement that you go to church. And I don't mean to suggest that we should have a requirement that we go to church.
No, I'm getting that. I'm talking about, I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt. I'm talking about the slippery slope of putting them specifically.
That's a coercive effect.
Yeah,
like either you're going to participate in a church program, potentially a missionary program, or
you're still missing the point there. Okay. Let's say somebody gets simple possession.
Yep.
Raise your hand if you think they need to be locked up.
No one's raising their hand.
No one's going to raise their hand. Yeah.
Okay, so anything in the whole wide world that happens as an outcome other than them being locked up is a better outcome, is it not?
That distinctly depends upon how hard you infringe upon their constitutional rights of freedom of assembly and freedom of religion.
Well, again, there's no.
You took the words literally out of my mouth. There was.
I mean,
go ahead, Justin. Go ahead.
There's no law in this realm that has been passed that infringes upon somebody's religious rights.
No.
So
we'll have to do another episode on that one.
Yeah, well, hang on. That's not what I'm talking about. I want to hear what Justin's saying.
If it's offered and somebody wants to take it and chooses to take it as an out among among a myriad of other options, a business has something, or there's a charitable organization of some other sort that has a program. So you choose your program.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, and I agree with that. That's awesome if you have secular programs and everything. However, what we're talking about, and I'm stuck in the realistic moment, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I'm stuck in the realism of we are in the Bible Belt, and I would say the state of Tennessee is probably in the 80th percentile Christian at least. I mean, the whole state, the population, I'd say, we're probably around 80% Christian. But my issue is that under federal constitution especially, this is a slippery slope of what if you're in some area like Murray County, for example, that has no other organizations available under the state program that aren't Christian. Your choices are accept Christian dogma and whatever this Christian organization wants to have you do,
right,
to keep your record clean.
Or
I know I'm painting a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope.
You can argue that the exact same thing is being done right now, because I know 21 years ago when I got a DUI that my lawyer said if I just go to and put myself in some sort of a rehab program, that I would get leniency in the court there. And I did. The thing's not on my record. It wasn't on my record after 1 year of judicial diversion. Mm-hmm. It's the same concept. You're just complaining about it because it's coming from a religious organization.
Well, no. I'm not trying to complain. What I'm saying is I'm offering a real critique as somebody who's a constitutional scholar and an attorney. This is a problem. You have to be very careful of these kinds of things. You want to be careful not to position it as a Christian thing or something that would become overly Christian or overly any religion. I mean, hell, if we were an 80% Muslim state, it'd be a problem too.
I'm only suggesting it as something that would be out there as an option.
I think it's a great option. I just think that you have to do
I think in general the idea is not bad. It's just I'm worried because, like you said, we're in the Bible.
I'm worried about the idea of duress and coercion, versus somebody's religious beliefs. That's kind of where I'm at.
I think duress and coercion is a very common thing in every single courtroom. Where we plea out 80 or 90% of every court case.
I completely agree.
And again, you go to rehab, you get a break. I mean, that's coercion. Yep. You're still just playing the game to play the game so that it's not sitting on your record. There's very little difference in that and going and pretending that you like church for a few weeks.
No, okay, we disagree on the very last part. But I do agree the idea.
We should move on.
Yeah, I do agree with the coercion. I do agree with
again, these are things we can find, but we're interested in your opinion. we're not agreeing here, but I think one thing that's important is that we want to hear your perspective, where you're coming from, and what's motivating these things. Even though we don't necessarily agree with all the details, I don't think in general it's a horrible idea.
No, not at all. I think in general,
I'm okay with generally, less government involvement in this, more focus on rehabilitation.
Yeah,
like all these things are good. I think in practice, these are things that
my concern is going to be the limit test across the board.
Yeah. I mean, and there's also in the state constitution about.
Oh yeah, the Tennessee state constitution is much more firm than.
Yeah, actually, it really is.
Yes, yeah. No, our state constitution is
things.
Yeah, we have a much better constitution than the federal constitution, actually.
With regards to religious freedom.
Most things until we amend it to do dumb stuff. But
there's the thing about it. We had a long conversation. This is super tangential, and we'll move on. About a person who holding up public office has to believe in like a future state of reward and punishment.
Right.
The shorthand for essentially like heaven and hell.
Yeah.
Like something bad's going to happen to you if you're a bad person. As a requirement, which is still technically on the books, completely ineffectual, but still technically on the books in the state of Tennessee. Yeah. But it's like one of like 7 states. It's like that.
Constitutions don't mean much these days.
Unfortunately.
Apparently not.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on from there, we're going to hit on next. We were talking, I guess, sort of at the beginning of sort of this segment about just Americans for Prosperity itself,
right?
And the fact that it sort of has a bad rap publicly, and I'm not
on the left side at least.
I mean,
it's got a bad rap on both sides.
It's got a pretty bad rap generally, because you think the Koch brothers, big money from outside of our state is coming in and sort of affecting local politics, right? It sounds bad, right? It sounds insidious. And I want to hear sort of your take on that. And, I'm not necessarily going to agree with you at the end of it, but I think there's a less hyperbolic version of that maybe you can offer. And that was interesting in that. If you could talk about sort of like the inception of AFP, sort of all the way up to the point of your, of your own involvement with it, which I know is new. Right. But I was wondering, go ahead.
Americans for Prosperity is a group that genuinely seeks to eliminate barriers for people to allow them to reach their own level of fulfillment. And they're interested in trying to create a world where we can all be mutually benefited by our own actions. So when it comes to business, they're interested in free markets, not controlled markets. They benefit the Koch brothers, absolutely. Their businesses benefit from multiple built-in cronyist type protections that protect energy industries and paper industries and things like that they've got their fingers in. But they also actively advocate to get rid of a lot of those things too. They're 100% prepared to compete in a free market, and they advocate for it. They are trying. The Americans for Prosperity tends to be more policy focused, and they're going to be even more policy focused after this year. But the idea is to find policies that can most benefit individuals in our society. So things that I'm interested in seeing them work on are civil asset forfeiture, which everybody celebrated when we got a bill passed this past year where it makes it slightly easier to fight to get your stuff back after they take it from you by violating your Fourth Amendment right.
See, and this is one of these things that I'm much more on board with you guys. By you guys, I mean libertarians.
Sure.
When you talk about civil asset forfeiture, I'm like, yeah, that sounds horrible. We should not be doing that. That should not be allowed. That is a Fourth Amendment violation. Like,
wow, I stepped away for about.
Yeah, I know you did.
And I missed out on some good.
He was getting into sort of like the broad strokes of Americans for Prosperity, and then he alighted on that briefly.
Oh yeah.
So I took that moment to concur, right?
Yeah, 100% agree. That it's terrible that your money can be put on trial for something that it didn't do.
Right. It's a good way of putting it. Good way of putting it. But anyway, continue.
It certainly didn't do anything, right? But yeah, AFP is, like you say, they're interested in doing whatever they can do that has the most impact on society, which is why they're trying to tackle criminal justice reform. Criminal justice reform is something that's got some wind behind its sails here, but it's not a primarily Republican issue.
No, it's not.
One of the gripes that the Koch brothers get, particularly from the left, is that they're a very Republican outfit. A lot of the Republicans complain at AFP because AFP holds them accountable on spending. And so they rub everybody the wrong way, but they're rubbing everybody the wrong way for the right reasons. Criminal justice reform is important because we lock away way too many people. Civil asset forfeiture is a real issue. Elections, increasing the power of the people at the ballot is a real issue. One of my personal pet issues, pet policies, I should say, that I'm really hoping to get some traction on at some point, is ranked choice voting.
Can you explain what that is?
Ranked choice voting is the short version of this. Is it gets rid of the fear vote. Essentially, you got 5 people on the ballot, so you go and you vote for the 5 people on the ballot in order that you like them. If your number 1 choice gets a crap percentage, your number 1 choice doesn't count, and you get your number 2 choice. So you get to vote for somebody that you like first, and then you get your fear vote second. And if you live in a world where the first vote isn't going to get you anywhere, the second vote does count.
I rather like that.
Of all the things that you can do in a country where the people are supposed to be dictating their own paths, the sole job of the federal government, or any government, state, local, should be to empower the people to better dictate their own courses. Ranked choice voting, I think, is one that is huge. Ranked choice voting is a paradigm shift. Ranked choice vote, if they don't have the fear vote, that changes everything.
No,
meaning that you need to choose the candidate that
you can choose the candidate that you really want, and if they don't have basically prayer in hell, then your second choice essentially is the one that's going to count.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Justin, what you're saying is that you want ranked choice voting out the window.
No, I want it implemented.
You want it implemented.
That's what I'm saying. I'm agreeing. I was like, yeah, that sounds good.
So it's kind of the idea of you want to vote for who you think is best, but you got a backup vote.
Essentially, yeah.
Right.
So you're not throwing it away.
Well, I mean, we had 2 candidates. Wait, I didn't.
Nationally, this could just be deadly.
No, we can talk about that one too, because Gary Johnson was a terrible candidate. But the reality is you had 2 other candidates that were polling at a combined more than 120 points in the negative, and one of them won.
Oh, I know.
One of them won because more people were afraid of the other person.
That's the reason.
Literally, yes.
Spoiler alert: your 2 hosts that you're talking to both voted for Gary Johnson.
Yes, it's true.
Yes,
I convinced a progressive liberal to vote for Gary Johnson.
Well, because I know Hillary didn't have a prayer in hell. Like that would have been like if we did the ranked choice voting, I would have voted for Hillary than Gary Johnson, right? The no chance versus this is the more practical choice. Like in Tennessee, not nationally, but in Tennessee.
Yeah,
God,
I mean, the Republican was going to win here. There was never any question.
Just by
Democrats would have been well served to go out and vote for Gary Johnson, because if they had, and we had gotten 5% in this state, we would have ballot access for a 4-year cycle. And those libertarians are way more likely to pull from Republicans than they are Democrats.
That was exactly my logic. I still feel bad because I feel like I contributed to a narrative of being mealy-mouthed nationally about Hillary. Even though I didn't. Don't like her
saying it. You need to put your
because elections have consequences, right? Look at we've had Gorsuch And now we're
Were you going to overcome a 31-point deficit?
And
we're
probably going to die in the next year.
Were you going to vote for 500,000 times or whatever to overcome a 31-point deficit?
In fairness, all the mealy mouth stuff happened way before we ever got to a point where it was Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Okay, we screwed up real bad in order to get those two to be our options.
Yeah.
As a society, we messed up, and we have messed up for decades, a centuries.
Since our inception, is that what you're?
I don't know. We've had some pretty decent presidents in that amount of time. I mean, we've been building towards a two-party system. We've been doing that for a long time. Yeah, I get your point. But
I mean, when's the last time we had a president that shrank the deficit? That shrank the budget, not the deficit, the budget.
Okay, all right. I was about to. Never mind. The actual budget, Christ.
Well, part of that marches with time.
Easily.
You have to adjust.
It's 1800s, right?
Yeah, it was whoever paid off the War of 1812.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There you go.
So it's not a minute. That's not.
So everybody else, for the entirety of the time, whatever party we've had in the office has been growing government. And they all grow government for the exact same reasons. It's to buy votes. Hey, look at me. I care more about this society than they do because I'm willing to spend taxpayer dollars on a program that helps certain people and makes me look cool.
They're not.
I mean, that's what it is.
Well, they're not just buying votes. They're also pushing national industry in directions that they want it to go because they're making money off of that.
They get campaign contributions for that, don't they?
Yeah, they sure do. And I mean, don't get me wrong. As much as I love Americans for Prosperity and I actually support the Koch brothers, they're doing the same thing. I mean, they are pushing social issues and issues that are really important. Like criminal justice reform is another one of those ones that I will stand for. I mean, I'll just go nuts. However, it is in their interest to push the way they push.
Right. I mean, they're going to benefit from.
They are billionaires, and their investments do.
He already said so.
Yeah, of course.
But they did the ban the box thing. You know what that was, right? A few years back.
Yeah.
Where check this box if you're a felon on your application.
Yes.
So we can automatically disqualify you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because
tell me how the Koch brothers benefit from pushing that.
No,
Tell me how
they don't.
They have an electrical company. They hire a bunch of entry-level workers. Wouldn't it be wise for them to keep those people out?
I mean, that's
make hiring a lot easier and spend a lot less time.
People who are looking for a second chance, I get what you're saying,
right? And trust me, that's what I meant to say is that I wasn't born yesterday. Like, I know what the Koch brothers are doing, especially as far as protecting their investments, the things they push. But they also do push things I care about. That's why I've always supported Americans for Prosperity, why I support their agenda in general, and why you'll hear me champion the Koch brothers. Because I think they actually do give a shit about people.
Yeah, I do too. And they do genuinely push for deregulation in areas that would hurt their business, that would increase competition in their business. They push. I mean, free market policies typically help a business. So yeah, I mean, sure, it would help them too. But at the same time, opening it up to competition is what's always been scary to everybody in any industry. That's why you.
Of course, the argument can be made that they're pandering for votes on all sides of the aisle.
Votes for what? They're not running for anything.
Well, not them, but for things that protect their industry. I mean, don't get me wrong. Again, I'm not trying to vilify them because I'm a big fan of what AFP does in general. Like I like that.
Yeah, James and I have had
we've had a lot of conversations about this. I mean, as you probably are well aware, the last state director was Andy Ogles, who is now our county mayor.
Oh, I didn't realize it was your county, but
yeah, Marion County. Yeah, he just won election in our county. I voted for him. I know Andy and I like him. Like, I think he's a great guy.
We need to have him on.
I would love to. Yeah, but Andy's an awesome guy. I mean, I was excited when I heard he was running for the Republican ticket for the Senate. I was ecstatic until
apparently he got word that they were going to kick everybody off that ticket before the primary.
Yeah, I know. I'm aware.
Isn't that how it works?
Which is something that I still want to ask him about on air, and if he's still listening to this, I don't know or not. But Andy, that is something I will ask you about if you come on. Why did you switch from U.S. Senate to Murray County Mayor?
Right.
I'm curious as to why you needed to hold office, but I understand
that's not really for you, Justin. Yeah, that's something we're curious about.
Maybe something I am curious about, but I think Andy did a great job with AFP, and I love what AFP does. I mean, I really do. I've known several people who have worked for them who've moved on to D.C. from Tennessee, and I absolutely love what AFP does. I completely agree with criminal justice reform. I still will caution them and you, if you're supporting it,
I will make sure as soon as I've got specifics that I come back on the show and we can talk about.
Please do.
Yes, please do. Well, and if you can get pushback, like I said, this is just something to be careful about. And I mean, I don't want to go back into that again. I'm concerned.
Okay pushing back.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned. I'm a little bit concerned about constitutionality there, and I don't like the way that's going. But anyway,
and you were worried about the status cut the whole time. Here we have the
libertarian constitutionalist, the originalist, who's over here like, actually, please
point out that Thomas Jefferson printed Bibles on the government dime.
Well,
there's a little.
Shouldn't have done that. Yeah, I mean, that's not going to change my original stance. But he should not have done that.
The originalist point of view on religion is significantly different than Mr. Hugo Black's view from Everson versus Walls, I think it was.
All right, hey man, we can agree on that all day long. That still doesn't change. That still doesn't change the fact that as a textualist reading, because in my book, I'm of the modern originalists. I'm also a textualist, and I think if you read it, it's pretty clear that the road flows both ways.
George Washington's farewell address addresses that as well. It talks about how religion is a main pillar in the edifice of your security. They didn't say that. They didn't encourage it because they wanted the state to tell people how to be moral. It's exactly the opposite. They wanted people to have a moral conscience that drove them to just be good people. So
100%.
And I can agree with that part of it, but you have to understand, I don't want to engage in presentism here, that at that time in that place, that was sort of a one-to-one fit with religion.
I mean, we're right in the middle. You're in the middle of the Enlightenment.
To appreciate that concept, it almost required religion at that time.
Yes.
People who we acknowledge as deists or sort of universalist type Christians amongst the founders, maybe wouldn't be today, but we can't say that because we don't know.
Okay, and Immanuel Kant is one of the greatest foundations for the metaphysics of morals. With his groundwork of the metaphysics of morals, you can separate that from religion. Kant himself was a Lutheran, right? I mean, but at the same time, you can use his religious model or his non-religious model to step away from this stuff. This is in the middle of the Enlightenment. This is in the middle of the Enlightenment that we found in this country.
But there was a strong opinion.
I agree. And what I'm saying is that, yes, that was our understanding and our basis of morality back then was Christianity. And there's nothing wrong with that as a basis of morality today. What I'm saying is it's not the only basis of morality, and they can coexist very nicely. I'm not saying we need Sharia law or some Muslim stuff or whatever,
or a Christian version,
or a Christian version of it, or some hard evangelical thing to tell us what is moral and what isn't. But Christianity and hell, even the more peaceful interpretations of Islam, all this do give ideas of what is morality that do kind of coexist for the Western world.
We've been poking at it for thousands of years.
But we can also get there completely from a non-secular standpoint.
I would ask one question.
Go ahead.
Does anybody think that our society today is a more moral and upstanding character than it was 200 years ago?
I don't know. I didn't live a few hundred years ago.
That's true, but you know what?
I think our thinking has evolved since
now. You know what our leaders sound like now, and what our leaders sounded like then. You know what individuals spoke of then. And
I think moral progress has been made since then.
I would say that right now Christianity in America is at the precipice of the Medicis in Rome. You're looking at this. You're looking at the same thing of people who want to get rid of what is it?
I don't get on with this whole moral decline.
No, I really don't. No, you're going the wrong direction. I'm saying that right now evangelical Christians are supporting Donald Trump. I mean, a man, Mr. Governor, Mr. Governor by the pussy, Mr. Right. You know, like pay off porn stars to have affairs with your. Yeah.
What he said was, yes, I'm a Christian. I have nothing to ask forgiveness for, which is pretty much the most anti-Christian.
No, don't get me wrong, but you have evangelical leaders lining up to be behind him. He removed, what is the Johnson Amendment? What's it called, the Johnson Amendment?
He tried to
castrate that. What I'm saying is that he is the Medicis of Rome. He's literally trying to use the church is a political power movement and not what the church's point is.
VP.
Yeah, again.
Who is he? Unless he authored that op-ed,
modern day evangelicals. Well, hell, even modern day Catholics, and God forgive my soul for even saying this, but even modern day Catholics on the right side. Well, I mean, I was raised Catholic,
right?
But anyway, all sides of the right-leaning church are trying to use the church like the Medicis did. Like you're making it a goddamn La Cosa Nostra. That's what you're doing.
It's because the church doesn't matter anymore. So
exactly.
The church is just another tool.
You're pushing a way to make money. You don't give a damn about the principles of the church.
Think about it. Shoot, it's way worse than that. Jesus was telling everybody to each their own. And now we have 200 different Christian denominations that claim the other 199 are wrong.
Yep.
It's more than 200, but yes, I agree.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's where becoming problematic. And that's what I'm saying is that be afraid of Christian legislation. Be afraid of it. That's not good. And it's especially not good for Christianity. It's not good for any religion. It's frightening.
But we didn't have a theocracy when we founded this country, but we did have leaders that said a religion was important and invoked God when they were speaking out loud.
Well, and not to sound rhetorical, but you're goddamn right. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the point, that's the point of the First Amendment. Believe what you want to believe on an individual level, and you have the freedom of assembly to assemble together. But what you don't have is the right of the church to interfere with the state and the right of the state to interfere with the church.
Okay, but we take the 10 Commandments out of the courthouse because somehow that's interfering with the state. How is that interfering with the state? It's not.
That's a pretty flat establishment of
people deem it
Christianity.
It is not
monotheistic.
I mean, I could run through, and I don't want to challenge that too hard. I mean, I could run through the court cases for that really quickly. But the idea is essentially that
was taken off the Alabama Supreme Court twice over that.
Removed his chief justice over it.
But
it turns out he was raping children. But
also that.
But I mean, Roy Moore was definitely
neither here nor there with the kid.
But I mean,
I hardly think that if Roy Moore had tried to put a 10 Commandments monument in front of his courthouse in 1801, that you would have gotten a gigantic stink from a community that told him he couldn't do that and he couldn't do his job.
Right, because those people at that time, because Christianity was ubiquitous.
Okay,
pretty much.
Also,
no, seriously, popularly, it was almost ubiquitous.
And that was my fear with what we were talking about.
And these people did not really contemplate the logical implications of the requirements of religious freedom.
Let's talk about let's talk about the general intelligence of the community back then and the level of education. I mean, yes.
I can't. I apologize. I don't see how a writing on a wall that nobody refers to in a courtroom is.
Then why have it? Why is it important if it doesn't mean anything to anybody?
I think that's a good.
It means something to whoever's courtroom it is, and whether or not that you let him plaster what he puts in his courtroom, what he thinks in his courtroom up, it doesn't change what he thinks. All it does is prevent him from exercising his own First Amendment right.
It changes my expectations of justice as a non-theist.
Hang on, wait, hang on, guys. I wouldn't, hang on, wait, before we go any further. I wouldn't care what the judge has in his chambers. And the United States government does not, neither do state governments. I'll give a great example. One of my favorite judges who is still on the bench in New Orleans in the federal Eastern District of Louisiana. His name is Judge Feldman. He was one of Scalia's best friends. Love him to death. Okay. He is Republican as the day is long. When you walk into his chambers in the federal district courthouse, there are two massive marble elephants that greet you right there in your face. There is a sculpture of Christ in the background. He has everything you can imagine being modern conservative, decked out, Christianity, everything, rosary beads. It's his office. Those are his chambers. Okay. If you have to be back in his chambers. Is he a
public servant? Is he a public official?
Yes, he is. And that's a public office.
Right.
However, it is somewhere that's private for him. And it's fun. And that's, to me, that's fun. Because again.
Until he has a meeting in his chambers.
Well, he does. And he does. They do have meetings in chambers. He doesn't do that, and neither does anyone else who holds that office. They have chamber meeting rooms right off the court, like right out of the courtroom, where they actually meet that are very neutral. They do that on purpose. That is his actual office. That's his office.
Okay.
If you're invited into his office, that's what you're going to see. It's on federal ground. It's fine. Okay. But the difference is it's not part of the due process. You don't see it. As a defendant or anybody else, you're not subject to it. You don't have to answer questions there. You're not under oath in front of it.
Wait. Hold up. What questions do you have to ask about it if it's sitting in the courtroom? Or what do you have to answer to? How are you beholden to it just because it's in the courtroom?
If I'm in a courtroom, if I'm in a courtroom,
his ability to judge a case if he has a copy of the Ten Commandments in his office or a copy in the courtroom.
Okay, in the courtroom, if I'm a criminal defendant, I'm facing loss of liberty, and for any reason at all, I feel prejudiced by the fact
this circles back to what we were talking about before about criminal justice reform. Exactly. If I've got to go and be a fake Christian for a few weeks to get out of going to jail,
I don't want testimony.
If I show up in a courtroom, there's no reason. I need to be a fake Christian to make sure I don't receive a harder sentence.
This should be a neutral zone.
Or found guilty.
It should be a neutral zone. There should be no semblance of religion.
When you get sworn in a courtroom, what do you get sworn in on?
You don't swear to God anymore, by the way.
You can swear in all.
You don't have to swear on shit, actually. You just raise your hand. No one asks you, so help me God. And if they do, you can object to it, and they'll remove it. And I've seen it in the most podunk counties in all of Tennessee. I'm telling you right now. I've been in Giles County in fucking Pulaski, the birthplace of the KKK. They do not ask you to swear to God when you put your hand
up. But if that judge had a copy of the Ten Commandments in his courtroom, he probably would, wouldn't he?
It'd be a huge problem. And I'll tell you, in the general sessions realm, the only actual fixed judge, because the rest are on circuit, the only one who's fixed is Judge Chip Richardson. He is a Christian through and through. He does not subject people to that.
I thought James was going to be on your side this whole night. I got to tell you, that's not. I thought you guys were going to be beaten,
but that's not right. It's not
I get beat all the time on the Bible stuff.
Look, it's okay, and I don't
have a problem. I don't have a problem with it either. I'm not against you being a Christian. I'm not against you having your faith. My issue is, if we're going to treat all of our citizens the same and fairly, and for our citizens to have the expectation of fair treatment, we need these.
We need a judge that looks at the law and judges you based on
don't belong.
Yes. Right. Well, not just based on the law. And that's where we're going to get back to. That's where Justin and I are going to be on the same side again. But all I'm saying is that the law includes the First Amendment. And just because Hugo Black coined the phrase separation of church and state does not mean that spirit was not there. It is an idea that religion should not influence the way due process works.
Law, yes. Yes. Okay.
And so, as somebody who has a confrontational,
having the Ten Commandments on a wall does not interfere with due process.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Okay, hang on. Take back. What
temporary art on the wall?
Hypothetical.
I find incredibly offensive. Why is that not
hypothetical? Okay, contemporary art. There is a piece called "Piss Christ" that is a man.
Oh gosh.
Yep. And that was a Pope blessed, I believe, crucifix of Christ that he pissed all over and put in a jar that looks like somebody beat his kidneys up and there's blood in it. It's really bad. But all I'm saying is,
gross.
Would you feel comfortable being put under oath and being questioned by a fully Muslim majority court with Piss Christ in front of you?
You know, the crazy thing about America is you get what's called a jury of your peers.
No, I get that, but your jury of your peers
be in a situation where you get 12 people that are not of the same.
Sure, but what I'm saying is that no one should invoke religion during that trial.
Nobody's invoking it if it's just hanging out on the wall.
And what if it's hanging out on the walls? And you're an atheist charged with murder, and you are fighting for your innocence, and you're proclaiming yourself innocent, and 11 out of your 12 jurors are Christian, and they start bringing up the fact that you're an atheist.
What if
you bring up the fact that this guy created Piss Christ again? I mean, how do you feel about it? Again, why is religion involved in this in the least bit in one area where it just shouldn't be?
This is like an intense.
That's the
quite lemon test. This
is an entire point and why the atheists win every damn time. Why the Church of Satan wins every time, because this is one area that's sacrosanct that you should not have this stuff involved in. Just keep it out of it. Just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. It should be hallowed ground.
My only contention is if it's an inanimate object lying on a wall or sitting in a foyer or anywhere else.
And then some asshole who's a prosecutor brings up the fact that they're an atheist. Your juror looks behind the judge in your view, and you can see the 10 Commandments sitting there. Do you not feel a call to religion?
This is the kind of thing that can cause mistrials.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is a problem. Okay. You're stepping in the way of due process.
That's absolutely fine. You can have a mistrial based on something like that. Okay, if you have but
why are we risking it?
I think that's what we're getting at. And Justin, I really don't want to berate you, but I want to slow this down a little bit, okay? But just think about it just on these terms. The James and I, even though I'm the liberal status cuck and he's the libertarian, we both have concerns about this because we both have concerns about how this affects a person's standing and ability to get fair due process treatment. Yeah, in a legal process which you're compelled to take part in.
I mean, I'm sworn to an oath to this Constitution right now about this.
And we're pushing back against the idea that someone feels like it should be okay to put religious displays in their courtroom, which are not necessary or required in any way, shape, or form.
Absolutely.
And we're not going to debate about it further, but I just want you to just step back for a minute and just think on your own time, why is it so important to you that those people should be able to do that? That's, if there's a takeaway here, if there's something we can revisit on a future discussion, I would like it to be that.
Particularly in a place of public office, in a public office level.
Yes.
Because, again, with Judge Feldman, personally, I really liked his office. I thought it was really swank.
Okay.
I mean, he had some really cool shit. Like, he had La Piazza.
It's a place of public access.
Yeah, I mean, it's different. He had a nice marble cast of La Piazza.
This is why I think, honestly, from my own perspective, I think less about courtrooms and like schools and
I don't want to get I'm not even really getting into schools. I'm talking about courtrooms.
Right.
That's the thing that.
Which I understand that's your shtick,
But I mean, that's much more important to me than that.
Well, I understand. Because you're not a child in a public school.
I was. I was.
I understand, but you're not. So
I also fought against them there, and I won. But,
there you go. I mean, I built a spaghetti monster because I didn't want them putting a nativity scene in front of the county courthouse. It's still in my dining room.
It's actually we're both staring at it. It's
we're both.
Giant fanoodle.
It's adorable.
Yeah.
Because I believe in church-state separation. That's what it comes down to.
I don't know about adorable.
Yeah,
but I appreciate your efforts. But
like I say, I'm a George Washington's farewell address on this is where my thoughts on it come from.
And it's not that I want to be disrespectful about it, because I don't disrespect it at all. I understand where you're coming from.
But it's fine. I don't feel like you're disrespecting me at all. What I feel like is you had these guys that got together that were really well learned, and they put together this piece of paper that formed a type of government that was new in a world where it was dominated by monarchs and kings, and all of a sudden they had this great idea to let people go out and dictate their own paths. And they had really smart men sitting in this room, way smarter than I am, that came up with these ideas. So I don't think that I've got great ideas. I think that I can point to the guys that did. As a
guy who's an originalist and who's read a lot of the Federalist Papers and the history here and everything, I feel like the majority opinion here was that we did not want the state to influence religion, and we didn't want religion to influence the state.
Right. Well, it's a fine line, but that doesn't mean that the state has to kick out religion.
And I think the main thing that I really worry about with the state, because I don't really give a shit about education in that sense. You know, honestly, I don't really care about school choice, all that stuff. That's fine. I don't really believe that we need, we're not going to go there. We're not going to go there. What I'm getting at is the one thing that matters to me as a person who really loves liberty is liberty. And when we're talking about a courthouse in a place that liberty is robbed from people based on mob rule, even if it's 12 mob members at a time, it's still a showdown. A trial happens. It's a play. We present people with evidence, whether it's admissible or not. We hope to God we got it right, but really it's a show. I don't think God, Jesus, Muhammad, Krishna, Yahweh, Buddha, none of these people, none of these entities have any say in this, and they shouldn't be involved. There should be no distractions. The distraction should be what is being presented as evidence and what are we talking about. We're trying to get to the truth. Here are the elements of the crime. This person could go to prison. They could lose liberty. They could lose guaranteed rights, the right to vote, the right to own firearms. These are huge rights that are at stake. Religion has no place in there. And I have zero doubt the Founding Fathers would agree with me 100%. And I'll argue that until the damn day I'm dead, and then past it if there is a God.
Then, if I may, of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. In vain would that man claim the tribute of patriotism, who should labor to subvert these great pillars of human happiness, these firmest props of the duties of men and citizens. Paraphrased from here. Promote then as an object of primary importance the institutions for the general diffusion of knowledge, including religion, in proportion as the structure of a government gives force to public opinion. Meaning the government can only push as much as it can push, because the government at that particular time didn't have the ability to tell everybody what to freaking think. That's a new development. So
I don't want the government to tell you what to think.
What I just read was written by the first president, the guy that wrote the Constitution, and the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. So for them,
John Jay was a big time corporation. That's true.
Yeah,
for them to come out and say this as those three guys, I think the consensus was that religion is there, and it's a part of most individuals' lives, and it's not exactly a distraction in a court of law that is based on a judge upholding the rule of law, which has always been the requirement of a judge. Well, until you get to the Supreme Court.
Let me handle this one break. Like, I'm not going to hate on John Jay or Washington for their statements, and I understand the context in which they made them and what they were arguing for. I agree with the things that they were arguing for. I disagree that religion, if they were alive in 2018, and I don't want to play presentism, that they would see that non-theistic ethical systems exist that are very robust. one is not intrinsically tied to the other. I think we've seen that well established in the last 200 years.
I think if you'd have given them 50 years, you would have had the effects of the European Enlightenment come to them.
True.
Voltaire would have showed up.
Right.
You know, like, what
the
are we
point is,
talking about?
I'm not hating on them for saying that. I understand the moral force behind what they're saying. I disagree on the point that religion necessarily is required for that. But if religion is an avenue to that, then fine as well. But I don't think it's a requirement.
I think what I just read never said anything about using religion in courts. It never said anything about that.
It also didn't mention
part of life.
It also didn't mention Jesus or anything like that either. They said God in the monotheistic sense of the Abrahamic religions.
Sure. But again, the role of a judge is to be an impartial referee that just rules on the law. That's always been the role of a judge. Anytime a judge has gone outside of that role, they have gotten cases overturned.
Yep. Not just that, but anytime they try to go outside of that rule, you have people like Roy Moore who get removed from the court.
I guess to answer what you're saying.
So somebody that does stuff incorrectly and does not follow the rule of law gets removed from his position. So the process works.
Yes.
Sometimes.
How Roy Moore,
I couldn't tell you how many stories I've heard.
The 10 Commandments on the courthouse lawn, and he got removed from office for it, which he should have been. Because, again, I mean, I'm reiterating my own point, and you're going to get removed from office for it. And the Supreme Court of the United States, no matter how hard you pack it with the furthest right individuals, are not going to allow this. Because you can't.
I worry about that.
No, because if you do.
If you're compatible.
If you do, you're sooner or later going to end up with the same shit, and you're going to have Sharia law. Do you want that? No. Then stop digging the avenue for it.
Yeah, see, I don't buy that either. I mean, look, I'm not a theocrat by any stretch of the imagination. I'm simply somebody that thinks loving thy neighbor tends to make everybody in society a better person, and it makes society a better place for everybody.
And I'll agree with you 1,000%. I mean, if you're I always tell people, if you're going to read the Bible and ascribe to it, read the Jefferson Bible. You can throw the rest of it out.
You're probably not going to like that one.
Yeah, but either way, you can throw the rest of it out.
No, I believe
you should actually read
the whole title. You got to give the whole title when you talk about the Jefferson Bible, or people don't understand why it was written.
Yeah, but either way, yes, the idea that you should be focusing on Christ's parables and what actually Christ talks about, and not.
Well, it's not that. It's love your neighbor. It's give a damn about the person next to you.
Yes.
I'm a libertarian.
You're talking about the Great Commission, right?
Well, pure libertarianism, it leads to genuine anarchism. That's no government. That's what you're looking for, is a world where you can live with nobody telling you what to do. That's perfect.
And
state of man.
Never going to happen.
It will never happen because the people don't have respect for the people next to them.
Exactly.
That's the short end of the.
Hell, that's what Rousseau's social contract. That's why we're here. We have a social contract.
There's
the idea that you submit certain rights to a despot so that you can get them back.
Sure, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think we've kind of gone on here a little bit in a lot of things, and this is a lively discussion, and we could go on for hours and hours and hours, but we're pushing 10 o'clock here, and I don't want to turn into a pumpkin in front of you guys. But I think we need to revisit this, Justin. It's been great having you on. We want to have you back.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too.
It's been great because, like I said, we had these little conversations on Facebook and what have you. But like, this is the real heart of the thing.
I expected that we would just be beating up on David.
I know, right? I was ready, man.
I didn't think I was going to come at you, man. That's not, and I didn't mean to come at you either. Like, I mean, I'm just saying.
No. And it's all civil, and that's what I like. Is we're not necessarily going to disagree or not necessarily going to agree, but like, we can be civil, we can be respectful to each other. I think, to me, that is the most important thing, because you're talking about, one of the things you said at the top of the show here, that we have this two-party system that is designed to divide us against each other, and get each side to look at the other like they're somewhat less than human, essentially, and okay to denigrate and ridicule and belittle. And we're not here to do that. Even though I strenuously disagree with you about certain things, I respect you as a person, and I respect your opinion. On that note, thank you very much for coming on. And we want to have you back. We want to have you back when you have more details for us on criminal justice reform and some of those initiatives, because that is something that I would be happy to champion.
Yeah, when that gets spelled out, actually,
I
would love to have a big discussion on that. And like I said, if you guys are meeting or doing something, God, I don't want to influence what's going on here, but I do, and I want you to specifically mention, be very careful about the First Amendment implications. I mean,
I'm sure I don't get any input on how to write the policy, considering that would be
probably
yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, well, I mean, I got
you. You don't decide these things. I understand.
Yeah, it's just a matter of.
If I had my way, I would scrap the 32 volumes of law that we have now and replace it with "Love the guy next to you."
We got to.
That sounds so much. Yeah,
I fully subscribe to everything you're saying in those words.
But that's
what I'm talking about how that gets implemented. But
I thought
all the law says at some point is don't.
The devil, maybe the literal devil, is in those details.
But Justin, it's been an absolute pleasure, man.
Yeah, we've enjoyed this. Thank you so much, and thank you for taking your time. I know you keep a busy schedule, and you had a busy day, and you were just getting to us tonight. And I know it's late. It's even later. It's like 11 o'clock your time. So really, thank you so much for coming on.
Yes,
we've loved it. We're going to have you on again.
Yeah, please.
It's my pleasure, and I would encourage you guys to engage with Americans for Prosperity.
Oh yeah, I do. I do regularly, actually.
Well, I mean, one of the things that we'd like to do is actually work for the community. Mm-hmm. So, as me, somebody who's somewhat politically astute, but I obviously can't keep up with everything in the whole wide world. So, if you got a nasty tax hike going on in Maury County because Andy's a turncoat.
I don't think you're in danger of that.
I'm going to keep that soundbite just in case, but
but
I don't think it's likely.
I don't think it's likely either. But if it happens, you can contact your local AFP branch, and you might find yourself with 30 volunteers and some walk lists and some robocalls that help you work on this. Or if you've got a serious issue in your county with certain regulations or stuff like that, if it lines up with the idea of less government, more freedom, there's a really good chance that we would be happy to get involved. I'm encouraging Democrats in my area to do the same thing on things like decriminalization or the CJR stuff, to get involved with us there, because typically they hate Koch brothers. But I mean, if they're going to fund the project,
but there's things we can come together on, right? I mean, that's the idea.
A lot of them have been fed the line to hate Koch brothers, but that's just the way it is. I mean,
there's good and bad. I mean, honestly, from my position, there's good and bad. Like, I'm not all in on anything anymore, really, politically these days. So, like, there's things like I like, and the more I don't like. And it's not just
the more you learn, the more nuance you see.
I'm not picking. I'm sick of tribes. Well,
we want to be a resource for the community to be a little bit more empowered to fight for their own freedoms.
Definitely.
So, Democrats like a little less freedom typically than Republicans do, but neither one of them are not afraid of freedom. They both hate it.
Well,
Democrats don't pretend to hate increasing.
I was going to say the problem. Yeah, exactly.
I think that's the difference.
Problem is that neither one of them understand what freedom actually is.
Right.
Let's not get sidetracked too much.
It's not 32 volumes of law, I can assure you of that.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Anyway, so, Justin, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Justin, if people want to reach out to you, maybe in response to this episode or what have you, if you have some public platform that you would like to advertise, this would be a good time to do it.
All I got's a Facebook page. I'm just a regular guy. Shoot me a message if you want to have a further conversation. You can email me at jcornett@afphq.org.
Excellent.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah, and we've had many conversations in both in private chat and also on your public Facebook wall.
Yeah, we really
which is always enjoyable. Yeah,
my page is pretty popular.
Yes, it is. Oh boy, and they run the gamut, man. Because I go in there and I traipse in and I kick over the hornet's nest, and it's always a good time for me.
I don't run anybody off either.
That's true. That's true. That's also true.
That's free speech, baby.
That's right.
It's true. And for us, we're Fermenting Opinions. You can find us at fermentingopinions.com. We have a Facebook, both a public page and a private discussion group for people who don't want their opinions out there publicly. Yep. And sometimes that's the case. But you can check us out. We're on iTunes and Beyond Pod.
Same name, Fermenting Opinions.
At Fermenting Opinions. And we're here on our YouTube channel. If anyone's watching live right now, you're obviously checking us out. But if not, you can like and subscribe and do all those good things to find out more interesting content from us. But that being said, I'm David Popadin.
I'm James McVeigh.
And we're Fermenting Opinions, and we'll see you next time.